Hello, our group will be discussing the causes of autism. Due to the nature of this topic, a debate format is not possible. Rather, we will be presenting research on each of the possible causes. Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disorder that is marked by deficits in social communication and social interaction. Since the discovery of autism, the rate of diagnosis has drastically increased. Currently, the prevalence of autism is 1 in every 68 children. As human beings, it is in our nature to explore and understand things. Autism is a very complicated disorder, and no one truly knows why or how it occurs. Since the existence of autism, many theories have originated on its cause. The topic of nurture versus nature has been a long debated subject, and some beliefs on the cause of autism have created a division among people in the research field and among the general population. Over the years, researchers have dedicated themselves to finding the cause of autism. Much research has been done, but there is yet to be a definite answer. Some of the most common beliefs of the cause of autism are parenting, socioeconomic status, vaccines, mercury, environmental toxins, pesticides, diet, and genetics. In recent years, these theories have become increasingly popular and constantly debated. Research on socioeconomic status examines the connection between income and education and the prevalence of autism. Research on parenting includes the refrigerator mother theory, which was popular and very controversial decades ago. The vaccine and mercury theory has also become a controversial topic, with parents claiming that their child got autism after they received vaccines. The topic of environmental toxins and pesticides and their effect on health has also been increasingly studied, along with diet, with some research pointing to possible links to autism. Research on genetics is accelerating and continues to produce new findings. Although we do not know the answer to the question, what causes autism, we do have research to help us distinguish what does not cause it, as well as some research that leads us closer to the answer.
Thank you, Monica. During the onset of autism, psychoanalytic theories played a major role in shaping the perspectives of medical experts. Armed with their own understanding and interpretations of autism, physicians and researchers sought to find emotional causes that possibly contributed to the disorder. Upon doing so, they concluded and publicized that the root of autistic symptoms stemmed from the most dominant person in the child's life, which was the mother, and as a result, many mothers came under a lot of scrutiny. Based on these observations, they were deemed cold and distant, which ultimately led to the refrigerator mother theory, emerging as the primary cause of autism. As a result, mothers were continuously blamed for their children's atypical behaviors. A term coined by scientist and physician Leo Kanner, the refrigerator mother theory refers to the belief that autism was caused by the lack of warmth in mothers. In his works, Kanner was the first researcher to indicate that parents of children with autism were impersonally distant based on his own observations. Such observations were often conducted on children from well-educated Jewish or Anglo-Saxon origin families who were either middle or upper class. According to literature, Kanner argued that children's autistic withdrawals meant that they were overwhelmed with a desire to maintain sameness and aloneness with respect to their environment. The parents seemed perfectionistic and preoccupied with abstractions rather than showing a genuine interest in people. They were cold and unattached, which led to Kanner's statement that children with autism were kept neatly in refrigerators that did not defrost. He further indicated that mothers' cold demeanors melted during pregnancy, but returned when their children were born. The refrigerator theory was later supported by psychologist Bruno Bettelheim, who became one of the most influential theorists in promoting this belief. Bruno was extremely adamant that parents were to blame for their children's condition and spoke frequently about this notion. Through a series of articles from 1950s to 1960s, He popularized the theory at a time when incidences of autism were becoming common and other causes could not be provided. He declared that autism was an emotional disorder which was caused when a child withdrew from the unbearable rejection of a cold and unresponsive mother. He theorized that the refrigerated mothers raised them in non-stimulated environments, which negatively impacted their language, social skills, and overall development. As a very passionate advocate and supporter of this notion, in his book The Empty Fortress, Autism and the Birth of Self, Bruno compared these mothers to Nazi guards and their environment as concentration camps. Nonetheless, despite the popularity of the refrigerated mothers theory, evidence was weak in validating this belief. During the onset of autism, this theory was somewhat credible because it seemingly provided an answer for the unknown. Furthermore, many of the observations conducted often found mothers of children with autism to be depressed, stressed out, overwhelmed, and unavailable. However, while that theory was highly supported by many during the 1940s and 1950s, when awareness of autism first emerged, growing research on autism has found the theory to be highly discreditable. One reason for this is the insufficient evidence and limitations in observations. According to various reports, Kanner did not observe different races, groups, or classes. Instead, he focused solely on families of Anglo-Saxon and Jewish backgrounds. In addition, Bruno failed to indicate that many of the mothers that he encountered had children without autism. Overall, to date, there have not been solid research that can provide a possible link between parental pathologies and autism.
Until recently, vaccines for a long time were believed to have been one of the leading causes of autism spectrum disorder. There are several reasons why people believe that vaccine caused autism. One of the most commonly blamed vaccines that has been said to cause autism is the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, also known as the MMR vaccine. This was believed because there were reports of both developmental regression and gastrointestinal symptoms shortly after vaccination. Also, the measles virus was found in children's digestive systems that had developmental disorders, but was not found in children who were typically developing. 3 arguments against vaccinations causing autism were mentioned in a study by Madsen et al. 2002. The first was, the risk of autism is similar in individuals who are vaccinated and individuals who have not been vaccinated. Secondly, there are no temporal clustering of cases of autism after vaccinations. And the third reason was autism was not associated with the MMR vaccine. Many studies have now been published supporting the arguments previously mentioned. Many vaccines contain a substance called thimerosal, which is a mercury-based preservative. This is what typically is being referred to when people state that vaccinations cause ASD. Mercury has been shown to have a negative impact on the brain's development in high doses over an extended period of time. The amount that is found in one's vaccine does not account for the amount that is needed in order for there to be a clear association between the vaccine and autism, but multiple doses can reach an unsafe level. Another explanation to why many parents and people have associated vaccines and autism is due to the time frame individuals are vaccinated is similar to the time frame that the characteristics of autism arise. Individuals who receive vaccination are given several doses before they reach the age of 3. Typically, diagnosis of autism is around the age of 5, with symptoms of the disorder beginning before diagnosis. When parents see that their children are regressing and not typically developing, they look for any reason why that this could be occurring. One of the easy correlations that they can make is that children receive vaccination before they started showing signs of autism. Now that many studies have been published in regards to association of vaccinations and autism, there has been no evidence supporting the assumption that vaccines increase the risk of diagnosis of autism. According to Fred et al. 2010, the main reason why people still believe that vaccines cause autism is because information is not reaching many parents in an effective and convincing manner. Medical professionals inform parents that it is their choice if their children receive vaccinations, but explain to the family that vaccines have not been shown to have any association with autism. Many parents still choose for their children to receive the vaccinations, In talking to some parents of clients, I have found that it is a common reason why they are not listening to the medical professionals is because they feel that the professionals benefit from children getting vaccinations and are not being honest about the findings. Mercury, which is found in vaccinations, can also be found in other ways. Mercury is a heavy metal that is found in food that we digest. Commonly, mercury is found in fish, by which it enters the organism through the water. Also, mercury can be found in some other items that we eat that get mercury through the rainwater. Any dose of mercury can be harmful to people, but the fetus and children are at increased susceptibility to mercury toxicity. Mothers who digest food which has mercury transfer the substance to the fetus and also transfer it through breast milk. According to a study by Zaire et al. 2004, mercury has been shown to alter the performance of motor function and memory in children who ingest what is known as a safe amount of mercury in their diet. Also, studies have shown that adults have a correlation between mercury and the attention dysfunction, fine motor function, and verbal memory functions. In a study by Palmer et al. 2006, they showed a significant increase in the rates of special education students and autism in a school district that was associated with an environmentally released mercury. Specifically, the study gave data that suggested that 43% increase in the rate of special education services and a 61% increase in the rate of autism when exposed to mercury. Another way that many children receive unsafe doses of mercury is through a chemical called dirocerol, which is a preservative found in vaccines. In the first 2 years of life, children receive a quantity of mercury that exceeds what is considered a safe level. The more research that is done on mercury, the more support it gets that it is harmful for the development of individuals and can cause many health problems.
Monica?
Pesticides are an environmental toxin that are commonly used in the agricultural business. About 1.1 billion pounds of pesticides are used in the U.S. every year. Pesticides are used on both consumable and non-consumable plants. Exposure to these pesticides can occur from direct contact or through ingestion. The American Academy of Pediatrics reported that children are especially susceptible to the toxicity of pesticides and urges parents to obtain reliable information on the pesticide content of fruits and vegetables. In recent years, the effect of pesticides on health has become a topic of interest. Current research on pesticides suggests that there may be a relation between the toxins and autism. A study conducted in 2012 found positive interactions for autism in relation to air pollutants and pesticides. Currently, a study that has gained attention is the CHARGE study. This study was launched in 2003 and is still producing new results. In 2014, it was concluded that women living in proximity of pesticide use at any point during pregnancy resulted in a 60% increased risk of an autism spectrum disorder. A review of studies exploring the relationship between pesticides and autism concluded that children's impairments in neurobehavioral development may be caused by exposure to pesticides in the prenatal stage. Impairments included difficulties in performing short memory tasks, increased reaction time, and impaired mental development. The topic of pesticides and their relationship to autism is still a fairly new one. Limited research has been conducted on the effects of pesticides on children in relation to the developmental disorder. Current research suggests that pesticides may have a significant effect on the development of children and could result in cognitive and developmental abnormalities. But due to the methods and populations used in the studies, they have been criticized and considered invalid. Due to this limited research, it cannot be concluded that this is a cause of autism.
Socioeconomic status affects individuals across the world in very negative and very positive ways.
Socioeconomic status affects everyone, but the question is, how does socioeconomic status affect those with autism? Is socioeconomic status related to an autism diagnosis? Socioeconomic status, or SES, is an economic and sociological combined total measure of a person's work experience, individual or family's economic and social position in comparison to others based on income, education, and occupation. As we have previously discussed, the rate of autism diagnoses is increasing, and we are no closer to knowing the indefinite cause of autism. There are many beliefs to what the cause of autism is, and socioeconomic status is one of them. There has been little research done in regards to socioeconomic status and those diagnosed with autism. Studies done by national studies to gather data from the Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network by using a multiple source surveillance system that uses data from education and healthcare systems to determine the number of 8-year-olds diagnosed with autism within the defined populations. An area-level census of socioeconomic status indicators were used to compute the ASD prevalence. This study showed that the prevalence increased with socioeconomic status in a dose-response manner with relative to medium socioeconomic status. The SES was much stronger for those who had already been diagnosed with autism. This study shows that SES and ASD prevalence is dependent upon a pre-existing autism diagnosis. This study was able to confirm some relation of socioeconomic status and autism, but future research will be needed for a more indefinite answer. While there is an abundance of research in regards to socioeconomic status and its effects on people's lives in general, there is little information focusing specifically on autism. Another possible cause of autism is food, specifically food that has gluten in it. There is no research at this time to prove that autism is caused by gluten intake, but there is research that states that gluten can aggravate autism symptoms as the autism community is already at a higher risk for gastrointestinal issues. Now Adrienne will discuss genetics.
Thanks, Morgan. Genetics is arguably the most commonly considered cause of autism today and easily has the most empirical evidence to support the link. Genetics describes the study of individual genes. Each gene is made up of DNA that provides a code for building proteins in our bodies that make up our bodies and determine how they function. The term genomics refers to a person's entire set of genes and the activity around those genes during development. The genetics autism link has long been studied, with one of the first experiments being conducted in 1977. In that study, the authors analyzed genes of same-sexed, identical and fraternal twins that demonstrated a link between genetics and infantile autism. Powerful advances in technology have been made over the years, allowing researchers to analyze genes in a way that has enhanced our understanding of the genetic factor in autism. Many techniques have been used to study the genetics of autism, including linkage, association, and cytogenetic analyses. Linkage studies compare regions of genomes that are similar between affected family members and those that aren't affected. Association studies, commonly referred to as genome-wide association studies, analyze differences in alleles between individuals with ASD and control subjects or those without ASD. Cytogenetic studies involve looking at specific chromosomal abnormalities that have a link to autism, such as Fragile X, Rett syndrome. More recently, copy number variant, or CNV analysis, has been used to detect sections of the genome that are repeated or deleted. These mutations can be inherited or de novo, which means that parents do not possess the mutation and did not pass it down. CNV analyses, and bear with me, there's a lot of terminology in here that's difficult for us to understand. CNV analyses have identified between 200 and 1,000 ASD-implicated genes. They've also revealed an emerging consensus that larger CNVs, that is, repetitions or deletions in the genome, are present in those with ASD and not the control subjects. One limitation of copy number variant analyses is that many CNVs are multigenic, making it difficult to determine the specific causative gene. The most significant revelation from the CNV studies is the link between ASD and rare de novo, the non-inherited mutations. So again, parents did not have it and did not pass it to the child. Some of the genes determined to be candidates in the etiology of autism include A2BP1, ANKRD11, SHANK2 and SHANK3, DDX53, CDH13, and DPP6. I only listed just a few. The point here is that they've identified very specific genes that are related to causing autism. The most current and probably revealing genetic study technique used is exome sequencing. Whole exome sequencing is used to investigate protein coding regions of genomes, and most research has focused primarily on simplex families. Simplex families are those families that only have one proband, which is an affected member. So parents don't have it, one child has it, siblings do not. The main outcome of the simplex studies has been the identification of rare de novo variants as a cause of autism. However, these variants probably only explain a small proportion of autism risk. The point is here that there is a large factor. There are so many different genes and so many different variations. Toma et al. In 2014 studied co-inherited gene mutations in proband siblings of multiplex families. So they studied families that had more than one child with autism. Results showed that truncating, which means shortened, heterozygous, which means a pair, one dominant and one recessive gene, variants have a strong role in the etiology of autism. So the greatest outcome of this particular study is the identification of new disrupted genes that are linked to autism, and they talked about two, YWH-AZ and the X-linked DRP2. Again, just another study showing specific genes that are linked. So there's two basic genetic models to explain the inheritance of ASDs. There's the major effect model, and then there's the multiple hit or polygenic model. The major effect model suggests that one major disruption to the genome is sufficient to cause autism, like in syndromic forms like Rett syndrome or Fragile X. Other examples of major effect model came from early cytogenetic studies where maternally inherited duplications in genes were detected. The most current research supports the multi-hit model, which suggests that a combination of mutations or variants in a person cause autism. LeBlanc et al. In 2012 identified a link between de novo deletions of SHANK2 and other inherited genetic mutations and ASD. So inherited and then non-inherited mutations in that specific study. Burkle et al. In 2010 also found de novo copy number variant mutations in the SHANK2 gene, as well as other rare inherited variants in proband subjects when compared to control subjects. The way researchers are able to conduct these mass genetic studies is due to the development of large genetic databases like the Simmons Simplex Collection, or the SSC, the Autism Genetic Resource Exchange, and the Autism Genome Project. The Simmons Simplex Collection is a resource of the Simmons Foundation Autism Research Initiative, which began in 2003. The SSC was created to house genetic samples from 2,600 simplex families. Again, those are families that only have one affected member. The Autism Genetic Research Exchange and the Autism Genome Project are both projects of Autism Speaks, which is easily considered the leading organization in autism research. The Autism Genetic Research Exchange was developed in 1997. It's one of the largest repositories of clinical and genetic information. Over 2,000 families are in the AGRE database, and over 150 research groups worldwide use it. The Autism Genome Project was launched in 2004. It consisted of 2 phases ending in 2011. Major contributions to the genetic cause of autism were made through the Autism Genome Project, including the identification of specific chromosomal abnormalities, as well as the discovery of 3 new genes that might be linked with autism. They were also able to rule out a link between certain genes previously identified as causing autism. Researchers are currently preparing for phase 3 of the Autism Genome Project with a goal of transforming genetic information into treatment. Autism Speaks launched their most recent genomics program in 2014 called MSSNG. I'm assuming you say that missing. It contains DNA from over 10,000 families. And the goal of this project is to surpass all current discoveries of genomic testing, hopefully leading to identification of subtypes of autism. So there's all of this information about genes and their link to autism etiology. Well, now what? From here, researchers hope to transform this wealth of knowledge into earlier risk detection, earlier diagnosis, and more individualized intervention to produce greater outcomes.
Thank you. In summary, the research fueling the theories of parenting, socioeconomic status, mercury, vaccines, environmental toxins, pesticides, and diet as causes of autism is not enough to support the idea that any of these factors are the cause of autism spectrum disorder. Research on these topics are very limited. On the other hand, the research presented for genetics is vast and is examined from many different aspects. Results indicate a strong relationship between genetics and autism. With new research on genetics emerging, this theory points towards the possibility of it being a cause of autism. Our hope is that research will continue to produce new findings and lead us towards a clear and final answer to the long-debated question, what causes autism? Thank you for listening.